mount a outboard motor bracket on the back of this Com-Pac 23. You can probably see there where the old one was mounted. That's for holes there. And the one that was on here was pretty much just like this one here. It was a Garlic, I believe it's called. The same type, same springs and everything, I think. But anyway, the previous owner had disassembled it to take it off of the boat, which means that it's almost impossible to put them back together unless you have special tools because of these springs. It's almost impossible to just by hand put these springs back in. Anyway, I had another one that I took off of another boat that's almost brand new, and the holes should line up to put it back on. So I'm going to just drill out the holes right where they were before and put this thing on. And I'll have to make me up a backing plate to put on the inside to reinforce that transom. The motor that I'm going to put on this thing, the engine, I've got an 8 horsepower, like a SailPro, that has a high torque prop on it, the low pitch prop. And it's a long shaft. I think it's like a 25-inch shaft. I know that's more horsepower than I really need, but I think that's what I'm going to put back on here. It's a two-stroke engine. It's a good running motor that I've got. I also have a 4-cycle Nissan, which is Tohatsu. 6 horsepower, that's a 28-inch shaft, is an option. So I've got those 2 motors, or 2 engines, that I'm planning on using one or the other on this boat. They're both good. The 4-cycle is quieter but heavier. 2-stroke is a little bit louder but considerably lighter. Even though it's 8 horsepower instead of 6, it's still lighter. And that's what I'm kind of leaning towards, that 8 horsepower. Not because I need the horsepower, but just because I've got it. These holes have been filled in with caulking of some kind. And I'm going to just try to get that caulking out of the holes. Now you can notice some spider cracking, or stress cracking away from these top holes here. Bottom was 2 from where the outboard motor was used to be mounted on it. And that's because he didn't have proper, and I say he, I'm talking about the previous owner, whoever installed this thing, which it may have come from the factory for all I know, I don't know. Anyway, whoever installed it originally, they didn't put any kind of a backer plate behind it. They just put washers, and that's all. And that's why you've got those stress cracks around those holes. If you have seen some of my earlier videos on this boat, you may remember that this bracket had been removed, and there was this really elaborate framework of aluminum angle iron and whatnot, just hard bolted to the whole thing back here. And then it had a vertical shaft or grooves between 2 pieces of angle that were back to back. And then it actually had a chain hoist mounted way up here high on it, and where you lifted the motor just straight up and down like this with a little chain hoist. And it was just a really cumbersome, heavy, ugly. Did it work? Kinda. But anyway, I couldn't stand it. I had to take it off. So you may see up here where I've patched a few holes way up here and way up here, even way down here. Another one over in here, something right there. I'm going to go back with this, which is pretty tried and true and not be so complicated. Anyway, so that's going to work. That looks like the right height right there as far as the handle on the back that you yank to go up and down with it. Is clearing the rub rail on the back side. So that part should work. But I should be able to use that 25-inch shaft motor without any problem. That's a long shaft. The other one I've got is I think it's called an extra long shaft. So I might be able to get me something and brace this up just to support it from the floor while I go on the inside and get something figured out. That might work. Let's see what I can find. I'm going to use butyl tape around these bolts. To seal them up. And I am going to take and just ease the gel coat off the edges here just a little bit, just to give that butyl tape a little something to squeeze into, but not much. The holes were already just a tiny bit larger than they needed to be, so there's already going to be some room for squeeze in already. Probably using a little bit more of this butyl tape than I really truly need to, but like I say, I know that those holes had already been drilled slightly bigger than they needed to be. Not much, but a little bit bigger than they needed to be. So I'm putting a little extra butyl tape just so it can have a little excess to push into those holes. So now I've put the butyl tape back here. Crazy. I put one of the screws in the wrong hole. So, got to change that around for a second. Try that again. I work by myself most of the time, so I'm always having to figure out ways to do things without the extra hand. When I really need the extra hand, I've got grandsons that are more than willing to help, but I'm just wedging a couple of sticks up here against it right now to hold it until I can get back inside the boat. So now I get to crawl down in here to get to those bolts and nuts that are up under there. I'll unload a few things here, give me a little bit more room. All kind of stuff down in there. No fun if you're claustrophobic. This is not much room. You can see here the small washers laying there on the bottom there that had fallen off whenever I drilled the holes. That was the only backer that this motor mount originally had. Okay. Now, as you can see, I'm gonna need a backer. There is you know, the transom is reinforced, but you still need a backer. I had a piece of pressure treated 2x10, Southern Yellow Pine 2x10, and I'm gonna just use it. And I made it a little taller than normal. or a little taller than I needed. I may add those other top 2 bolts too, actually, once I know everything's in place like I want it. And I'm gonna bed this. I've got some, had just a piece of tube left over that I've been keeping in the refrigerator of Boat Life caulk. I'm gonna use that on the inside of these bolts, just a big donut of it around the bolts, you know, where it'll seal the threads from the inside. I'm not gonna bed the whole board because I want to be able to remove things a little bit easier than that. But that'll give me a good enough backer. And then I'll use a fender washer and a lock washer on the back side, you know. And then got this little caulking gun. It's kind of cool. My son-in-law gave me this a while back. It splits the tube as you put it in, and you can trim off the excess tube so you can get in a tight spot like that. And it actually comes in handy quite often. It does not work as well with like the 3M 4200 because of the metal tube and the metal ring at the end. But if you take a pair of snips and snip the metal ring at the end of the tube, then it still works. But it works really good on the plastic tubes. Okay, so I'm just finishing tightening it up. Okay, that's good. Got a little something here I'm gonna need to address. Evidently it doesn't leak, but it looks like it was when the boat was built. That little piece of mat or whatever that was that they put around that drain pipe there, like it kind of got squished and popped away. What I'll do is just clean that out best I can and just pump it full of, probably just mix up some thickened epoxy, maybe with some strands in it, you know, fiberglass strands in it to give it some real good body strength, and just shove it up in there and maybe put a little bit more around it right there. Like I say, it's sealed, doesn't appear to have ever leaked. What you're seeing running up here is where some resin ran down at some point in time. But other than that, that's one more project done.